Rachel Bennett hadn't been on a date in 4 years, not since her messy divorce left her heartbroken, and raising her 6-year-old son, Noah, on her own. Between her job as a dental clinic receptionist by day and delivering takeout at night, she barely had time to sleep, let alone date. But when her best friend, Clara, insisted on setting her up with a nice, normal guy named Brian, Rachel reluctantly agreed. She told herself she wasn't looking for love, just a reason to put on lipstick again and feel like someone other than mom, or the woman who's always late on rent. That Saturday night, she raced against time to drop Noah off at her sister's, battled through unexpected rain, and arrived 15 minutes late at La Vie, a sleek downtown restaurant she could never afford on her own. She felt wildly out of place as she stepped inside, clutching her second-hand handbag and trying not to slip on the marble floor. Her friend had said Brian would be in a navy suit, clean-shaven, looks like a banker. Scanning the crowded tables, she spotted him, or so she thought, seated near the window, scrolling through his phone. Navy suit, check. Clean-shaven, check. Serious expression, check. Taking a deep breath, Rachel approached, plastering on her most confident smile. "Hi, you must be Brian," she said brightly. The man looked up, startled for a moment, then smiled politely. "Actually, it's Daniel, but close enough. Please, sit." She hesitated, confused, but he gestured to the chair, and she sat down, deciding she could clear up the mix-up in a minute. Maybe her friend got the name wrong. As they started talking, the awkwardness melted away. Dan, as he insisted, was charming, but not in a practiced, player sort of way. He had a quiet confidence, a way of listening that made her feel seen. He asked about her life, not out of politeness, but with genuine curiosity. "So, what do you do?" he asked, sipping his water. "I'm a receptionist at a dental clinic," she said. "And I deliver food at night. Single mom life, lots of hats to wear." His brows lifted slightly, not in judgment, but surprise. "That sounds intense." Rachel laughed, though it came out a little tired. "It is. But I'm used to it. My son's worth it." "Sounds like he's lucky to have you," Dan said softly. Her heart warmed at that. She couldn't remember the last time anyone said something kind to her without an ulterior motive. They ordered dinner, and she found herself relaxing. The conversation flowed easily, about books, music, and how both of them were terrible at cooking. She laughed more that night than she had in years. It wasn't until halfway through dessert, chocolate mousse she couldn't even pronounce, that her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Hey Rachel, I'm at La Vie. Where are you?" "I'm wearing a navy suit." Her blood ran cold. She looked up slowly. "Dan, can I ask you something?" He nodded, amused. "Sure. Did you have a blind date tonight?" "No," he said, brow furrowing slightly. "I was just having dinner alone." "Why?" Rachel's face went crimson. "Oh my God." She covered her mouth. "I think I sat at the wrong table." For a moment, there was silence. Then Dan started to laugh, a deep, warm laugh that filled the space between them. "Well," he said, grinning, "I'd say this is the most interesting dinner I've had in years." Rachel groaned. "I'm so sorry. You must think I'm insane. I swear I thought you were someone else. My friend set me up with this guy named Brian." Dan raised a hand. "Relax. Honestly, I'm glad you made the mistake. I was planning to eat alone." She blinked. "Really?" He nodded. "Yeah, my assistant kept insisting I needed a break. I thought I'd sneak in a quiet dinner before heading back to work." Rachel tilted her head. "What do you do?" He smiled faintly. "I run a company. Tech stuff. Nothing exciting." She didn't pry. It sounded modest enough. In truth, she was too embarrassed to ask more. After apologizing again, she texted Brian a quick message saying something had come up and she couldn't make it. Somehow, leaving Dan's table felt wrong. So she stayed. By the time their plates were cleared, she felt like she'd known him for years. When the check came, Dan paid without hesitation. She started to protest, but he waved her off. "Think of it as repayment," he said lightly. "For making my evening a lot better than expected." Outside, the rain had stopped. He walked her to her car, and they lingered under the restaurant's glowing sign. "Can I see you again?" he asked. Rachel hesitated. "You sure you want to go on a date with the woman who crashed your dinner?" "That's exactly why," he said, smiling. "You made an ordinary night extraordinary." They exchanged numbers, and for the first time in years, Rachel drove home with a smile on her face. Over the next few weeks, they met again, coffee dates, walks in the park, late-night talks when Noah was asleep. She learned that Dan wasn't just kind, he was genuine. He never made her feel small for her struggles. When she mentioned her car breaking down, he showed up the next day with a mechanic friend. When she worried about No's school fees, he helped her find a scholarship program, quietly, without making her feel indebted. But it wasn't until a month later that Rachel learned the truth. One morning, her coworker came rushing into the clinic holding a business magazine. "Rachel, isn't this the guy you've been seeing?" There, on the glossy cover, was Dan's face under the headline, "Tech Billionaire Daniel Cross Expands Global Reach with New Humanitarian Initiative." Her stomach dropped. Billionaire, CEO of Cross Tech Industries, the company everyone in the city knew. When she met him that night, she could barely meet his eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" she whispered. He looked genuinely apologetic. "Because I wanted you to see me as a person, not a headline. You treated me like Dan, not a billionaire." Tears pricked her eyes. "I feel stupid." He took her hands gently. "Rachel, you've never treated me like anything other than a man who got lucky to share dinner with you. That's what I've been looking for my whole life." Her breath caught. "You mean that?" "I do," he said softly. "And if you'll let me, I want to be part of your life, and knows. Not as a savior, just as someone who cares." For the first time since her marriage fell apart, Rachel believed in something again, something fragile but real. What began as a mistake at the wrong table turned into the beginning of a love story neither of them expected. Sometimes, life doesn't need a perfect plan. It just needs one beautiful accident. Rachel Bennett hadn't been on a date in 4 years. Between working double shifts, paying overdue bills, and raising her 6-year-old son Noah, she didn't have time to think about romance, much less participate in it. But her best friend, Clara, refused to accept that. "You're 31, Rachel. You need to get out. His name's Brian. He's kind, stable, single, and looking for something real," Clara had insisted. So here she was, nervously walking into La Vie, a restaurant where the chandeliers looked more expensive than her entire apartment. Her old black dress suddenly felt like a costume. Still, she clutched her thrift store purse, took a deep breath, and scanned the room. Clara had said Brian would be in a navy suit, clean-shaven, maybe sipping wine while waiting. Near the window, a man matching that exact description sat alone, scrolling through his phone. That must be him, Rachel thought. Heart hammering, she approached, forcing a smile. "Hi, you must be Brian." The man looked up, tall, strikingly handsome, eyes the color of storm clouds. "Actually, it's Daniel," he said, lips quirking in amusement. "But I'll happily answer to Brian if it keeps you here." Rachel blinked. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I think He gestured to the chair. "No need to apologize. Please, sit. Let's pretend it was meant to happen." Something in his voice, calm, playful, kind, made her laugh. Against her better judgment, she sat. They talked, and talked, about everything and nothing, the food, the city, the ridiculous cost of coffee. When he asked what she did, she shrugged shyly. "Receptionist at a dental clinic. And part-time food delivery when my son's asleep. Not glamorous, but it pays." Dan smiled warmly. "That's admirable. You're working twice as hard as most people I know." She felt her cheeks warm. "Well, bills don't care about glamour." There was no condescension in his tone, no trace of pity, just quiet admiration. He listened when she spoke. He laughed at her stories. He treated her like someone worth knowing. By dessert, she realized she was enjoying herself, really enjoying herself. Until her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Hey Rachel, I'm at La Vie. Navy suit, by the bar. You here?" Her eyes widened in horror. "Oh no," she whispered. Dan tilted his head. "Everything all right?" I think I sat at the wrong table," she admitted, mortified. "You're not my date." Dan chuckled, setting down his fork. "So this was a mistake." "An incredibly embarrassing one," she said, burying her face in her hands. He smiled softly. "Then I'm grateful for it. It's been the best mistake of my week." She looked up, meeting his amused eyes, and laughed. Somehow, the tension melted away. When the bill came, he paid without hesitation. Outside, he walked her to her car despite the drizzle. "Maybe next time," he said, "you can intentionally sit at the wrong table." Rachel smiled, heart fluttering. "Maybe I will." Neither of them knew it then, but that chance encounter was the beginning of something extraordinary. Part 2. The Right Man. Over the next few weeks, Dan became a steady presence in Rachel's life. He texted every morning, "Hope you and Noah have a good day." He called at night, just to hear her voice. Sometimes they met for coffee or took long walks after she put Noah to bed. He was easy to talk to, calm, grounded, and funny in an understated way. But there were moments Rachel couldn't quite read him. He was private about his work, brushing off questions with tech stuff. Nothing thrilling. She assumed he was a programmer or mid-level executive. He certainly didn't act like someone rich. He wore simple clothes, drove an ordinary car, and seemed far more interested in her stories than in impressing her. Noah adored him almost instantly. Dan showed up one Saturday with a Lego set, from a friend's kid, and spent 2 hours helping build it on Rachel's living room floor. Watching them laugh together, Rachel's heart swelled, and a small part of her dared to hope again. Then, one afternoon, everything changed. Rachel was at the dental clinic when her coworker burst in waving a glossy magazine. "Rachel, isn't this your guy?" Rachel frowned. On the cover was a familiar face, smiling, confident, unmistakably Dan. The headline read, "Daniel Cross, Tech Billionaire Expands Cross-Tech Empire with Global Education Initiative." Rachel froze. Billionaire. Her stomach twisted. She reread the article twice, her hands trembling. It was him, Daniel Cross, CEO of Cross-Tech Industries, one of the country's most powerful technology companies. That evening, when he arrived at her apartment with takeout and that familiar smile, Rachel could barely meet his eyes. "You're Daniel Cross," she blurted. He hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I wanted to tell you, I just didn't want that to be the first thing you knew about me." "Why not?" she demanded, hurt flaring in her chest. "You think I can't handle the truth?" He stepped closer, his voice gentle. "Because I didn't want you to treat me differently. You never asked for anything. You talked to me like a person, not a headline. I didn't want to lose that." Tears welled in her eyes. "I feel like an idiot." He reached for her hand. "Rachel, you're the only one who's seen me as just Dan. No one else does that." Silence hung between them, heavy but tender. After a long moment, she whispered, "You could have picked anyone." "Why me?" He smiled faintly. "Because you walked into my life by accident and didn't ask for anything in return. You're real. You remind me what matters." She stared at him, her heart pounding. He wasn't perfect, he was far too good to be, but in that moment, she realized he saw her for more than her past, her job, or her struggles. Weeks later, he met Noah officially. They went to the park, shared ice cream, and watched the sunset together. Dan didn't try to impress either of them. He just showed up, and stayed. Months passed. One evening, Dan took her back to La Vie, the restaurant where it all began. "This time," he said with a teasing grin, "let's make sure you're at the right table." Rachel laughed, tears glistening in her eyes. "No," she said softly, taking his hand. "The first one was perfect." What began as a blind date gone wrong became the miracle Rachel never knew she needed, a reminder that sometimes, love doesn't wait for perfect timing. It shows up when you least expect it, disguised as a mistake, that turns out to be destiny.